could be a snake in your eyes, but you swore to my heart that you loved me, and you'd never tell me lies. So I taught my ears not to listen. I guess that was my mistake. Did you ever promise forever? I never heard you say. Oh, your love was like a diamond, and oh, how it sparkled and shine. And I looked from every angle, but I never could see inside. I left West Texas, heaven it was the only one I've ever known. I've been on the road down here, driving with my blinders on, and all life was to me was like a truck stop where you want to stay. I never really saw it when you built your dream right in my way. No, I just passed on through like a lonely town. Playing in my head, I heard this music like a radio. In another town, somebody turned on somewhere down the road, and everywhere I turned, I tuned in something that you had to say. Your signal never cleared, I guess it matters that you're so far away, and I just passed on through like a lonely town. I left West Texas, heaven, no, I guess I'm never going back that way. Did your love get lost, oh baby? Did your love just get misplaced? Everywhere I go, oh, the ghost of you just follows me, and everywhere I go, I hear you whisper down my empty streets, and everywhere I go looks like a lonely town. Oh, everywhere I go looks like a lonely town. Oh, everywhere I go looks like a lonely town.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of 20 Question Tuesdays. I hope you can hear me all right out there. Sometimes the technology coming all the way from Vancouver Island is a wee bit suspect. But we have a really, really great show for you today. Now we are live on Austin Music Television, which is channel 16 on most of your cable providers and channel 99 on ATTUverse. And we want to thank them, as always, for giving me a nice platform for this. And for everybody who's out on Facebook or on Twitch or on Twitter or on YouTube, I got all your comments coming in and these great questions for our guest today. For those who don't know, you only okay. No, that's kind of a funny comment there. You only see half of me. Well, I'm all here. Anyway, something happens every week on this newfangled thing, and that's that touch of unprofessionalism that I'm told makes me so lovable. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's what I'm told. So, if you don't already know, right at the beginning of said pandemic, I got online and I started asking questions. I just turned my camera on and started talking to people about music. And it was really beautiful, everybody who started showing up, because everybody was locked down. And we're all going to start doing some more lockdowns. Half of my face, huh? Well, thank you for telling me. I'm going to refresh and see what's happening with it. Pretty soon it's going to be me plus my friend Kimmie, so who cares? Oh, I do see it's only half of my face. That's really, really weird. What about now? And then we'll go like that again and see what happens. I'm Phantom of the Opera. That's good. Hey, let's just get right to it. Now I have guests, and I really, really love doing it. And hopefully this'll fix everything. And I know it will because I'm so happy to have this person here. This is Kimmie Rhodes, everybody. And I'll check and see over on the old Facebook and stuff if things are now fixed. Oh no, all of a sudden, yeah, my face got better. Hi, Kimmie.
Hi, Jeff. Together we're one whole person now.
We are. Together we are one. Everybody's chiming in. Full screen now. It's fixed. All good now. Good. Well, then we can get to the show. And I'm super happy to have you here because number one on top of my list is I miss you.
Oh, I miss you too. This is so much fun. I love it. Everybody's got their own TV show now. I always said that you should have your own TV show, and now you do. It's like Johnny Cash and Porter Wagner.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what.
Everybody's got a TV show now. Andy Warhol would love that.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Never thought of it. Your 15 minutes. It's all about your 15 minutes. Well, what I love about this show and what I usually say in the intro, but I got stumbled over technology, is that it's mainly the questions that come through from the people out there. And some of the people out there listening are musicians, and some of them are pickers, and some of them are, and you know, I've got great shows in the archive and great shows coming up. But we've got some, lots of people saying hello as well.
Hi, everybody.
So I'm going to jump right into it with a nice, let's start with a nice softball. Okay, let's see. Randy says, okay, so your son, Gabriel Rhodes, you've been playing with your son, Gabriel Rhodes, for years, and he's done a lot of stuff. Randy's question, which I like and kind of makes me giggle, and I may already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Did you try to talk Gabriel out of being a musician?
Absolutely not. No, at that point we were so dug in. Gracie and I, Joe Gracie and I, to master a record, and working with Willie a lot at that point. And we left Gabe with the babysitters, two guitar players, David Zettner, who'd been the bass player for Willie before B.
Mm-hmm.
He got B the gig. Mm-hmm. And then Bucky Meadows, who's his claim to fame was he was the one that they said, how are we going to start Redheaded Stranger? And he said, how about, picked up the guitar and went, dun, 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 which is what happens when you bottom up. So we left him with these two Yahoo guitar player, wonderful guys to babysit. And when we came back, a lot of things had happened, but Gabe was playing guitar. And so I would I'd hear him upstairs. I'd go do a session. I did a session with Grady Martin.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I'd bring the cassette home
from
the studio. Back in those days, they'd give you the board mix. And I brought one home with Grady playing the solo on Just One Love, the song
Uh-huh.
mine that I cut with Willie. And I could hear Gabe up in his room learning note for note, Grady Martin. And, we're so full circle now because I'm doing the same thing with Gabe's son, Louis Rhodes, now, my grandson.
Really? See, okay, now that's a new development, isn't it?
Well, it's a fairly new development. For Christmas last year, I gave him piano lessons with Floyd Domino.
Oh,
A lot of people out there know Floyd Domino, play with George
yes, they
Strait,
do. Yes.
Will, and he was in my band for years. And so anyway, Floyd's been giving Louis lessons since last December, and it is amazing. And now he's learning piano tuning and repair also.
Ooh, so he's got a straight gig to kind of balance things out that's also creative. See, it's funny because somebody like Randy will ask a question like that. Like somebody asked me when I went to Doneen's parents to ask for her hand in marriage if they didn't say, "No, Jeff, what's your real job?" And they didn't. But it's funny because Randy will ask something like, "Okay, did you talk Gabriel out of being a musician?" But in our circles, and I'd like to think, let's just say even just like Austin, or Surrounded or Hill Country or whatever kind of music we're involved in, it's certainly not frowned upon, and it's certainly not looked at necessarily as a tortured existence. It's kind of looked at as, well, of course, if he wants to do that, I want him to do that. Do you
It's a
feel that
great
way?
life. I mean, it's a great life. Why would you try to talk anybody out of something? And, my mom, I guess my mom was a little bit apprehensive when she found out I was going into the music business. My parents always encouraged me, and my dad had a vicarious experience through me in music.
Right.
But she never really tried to talk me out of it, but I think she was apprehensive. And then after I got a song cut and I made more off one song than she made all year, she was okay.
Yeah, isn't that what
That's my
happens
favorite
sometimes?
song.
They need to see something. So I'm going to mention because I just finished this absolutely incredible book, and you're mentioning it, and I know we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff that's come through it, regarding you mentioned your parents and growing up. One thing that everybody should know about this book is it's called a duet memoir. And this is Radio Dreams, written by Joe Gracie and Kimmie Rhodes. The story of an outlaw DJ and a cosmic cowgirl. Honestly, I mean, pandemic wise, I've been reading a lot, and I raced. I mean, it was just like a page turning, beautiful love story. I've never heard of a love story like this in my entire life. Um,
Me either.
Yeah, right. And but and it's funny because I had spoken to you and I said, hey, I'm almost done, and you're like, oh, we're almost at the part where something happens to the hero. And I commented to you and I said, I really kind of feel like you're both the hero in it, and that's not really lip service. I think that you're both the heroes of the book. It's pretty amazing. But the story's about you both growing up. And for those who don't know and who haven't read the book or don't know about even 70s Austin or long beyond Joe Gracie and his huge contributions, from being a DJ to all other stuff. It really, really makes the book. It's just amazing how it goes back and forth. So not only do I recommend it, but I know we're going to touch on things. You talk about your growing up, in the book a lot, and that kind of like thing where, well, no, we're just gonna do this. We're gonna, and we're gonna do music, and it's pretty inspiring. But let's get more. That's just me gushing. I want to go more into some of these great questions because I got a lot of great questions for today. Um, uh, how did you get involved as an honorary ambassador for the Buddy Holly Foundation?
Okay. Who's that question from?
That is from Betsy from Berkeley.
Thanks, Betsy from Berkeley. And Randy for your question too. Well, I do a songwriting retreat every year with Chris Difford in Glastonbury. And it's hosted by the Buddy Holly Educational Foundation. Peter Bradley Jr. and Sr. and Maria Elena Hawley and some other
Right.
people. And so they always host that. They're always there. We got to be friends. And I am from Lubbock, Texas.
Yes.
So Buddy's hometown. So as far as I know, I'm the only one ever in Glastonbury from Lubbock, Texas. So I'm sort of the token Lubbockite there. And I just had a real willingness to participate in that because I love the things they do. They work with the WHO and teen cancer. And that's a project that's dear to my heart. And so I've been involved in helping some of the things with that. I love Maria Elena and loved getting to be friends with her. And they actually helped support when I was doing the Kickstarter for my book. They supported Radio Dreams because they believe in me, and I helped them and they helped me. And
so everything kind of came full circle, and
and recently I hooked them up with Ray Benson. I got to present a guitar. They have these beautiful guitars, and they keep giving me guitars. And then because they're over there and I'm over here, they're in England, I keep giving my guitar away and getting promised new ones. But I presented Willie.
That's awfully kind
of you. Willie with my guitar, Lonesome Dove, and then I presented Emmy Lou with a guitar that they had for her, and then Beth Nielsen Chapman, and we had a lot of other great things scheming that we will get back to once this whole pandemic nonsense is over.
Yeah, and we sure hope it ends up, sooner than later. We gotta take care of each other and be smart about it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Don't
get me started.
Yeah, me neither. And it's fine if we want to go there on this show. We sure can. But with regards to Lubbock, I always like to mention if I have a Lubbockite, around. It started with me when I started touring a lot with Joe Ely and being a side guy for him, doing kind of what Gabriel does with you. You grab a guitar and you try and stay out of the way of the words, and you try to make the song, sound better in some way or fuller, and that's it. And that's how you keep the gig. You listen to the words and you just play along. And hopefully add something to it. But that's where I really, really started to learn more. Like, of course, I knew Buddy Holly. Of course, I knew Roy Orbison. I even knew, Maine's Brothers. I even knew a little bit in my tenure in Texas. But I hadn't really understood, how much comes out of this flatland town that's all in grid. There's everything is A1 and the streets and stuff, and somehow these incredibly creative people. Joe used to just say, it was because we had nothing to do. I mean, your experience in Lubbock growing up, you did a lot before you became professional. I mean, from florist to all other stuff, but was it always kind of part of your life there as far as just diving in? Or, I mean, we could talk about what's written in the book, but do you feel that way about Lubbock too, that it's just kind of crazy how much the pool is?
That was 20 questions right there.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not the best.
So I started singing when I was 6 years old.
Right.
And that's stories in the book. But so I had kind of already been a singer for a while when the whole Beatles and everything started up. And, I also think that, we were in Lubbock, there wasn't a lot to do, but it was an incredible time for music. You could turn anywhere on the dial and hear Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, Hank Williams. Every format was incredible. And
sometimes you could hear him on the same station. If it was Gracie, he was trying really hard. He was trying to put Aretha Franklin next to Willie and playing Willie songs, to push him. And it's a really interesting part of the book as well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
They called it progressive country. He never liked that term very much. He said it should be called like our music or something like that. But it was called progressive country and it was a format that now Americana and all that grew out of. But yeah, so by the time when they would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up in Lubbock, I'd say a florist because I really wanted to be a florist.
I know. It's such a thing. My wife being a horticulturalist, I never really knew, as long as I've known you, that we had this connection as far as that was concerned.
Yeah. So by the time all that came along, I was aspiring to be a florist, and then later, after I moved out of Lubbock and I was living on a farm in North Texas, a family farm up there, I had time and things had kind of calmed down, and that's when I took some music theory and learned to play guitar and started writing my first songs before I came to Austin in '79. Then the whole thing started up at that point.
As we talk about songwriting, I was talking with a mutual friend of ours, but somebody that you know quite a bit better than I do, which is our friend Gary Nicholson. And Gary and I were talking this morning, because I'm going to have him in December on the show. And we were talking, and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to have Kimmie today." And he said, "Oh man, I'll have to tune in, et cetera, et cetera." And he noticed that the first songs that he got cut by Willie were the duets with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just like for the longest time he couldn't get a cut for Willie. And I mean, it's funny that he's saying cuts with Willie, like, oh no, until he would have one that was just written by him. They were always, or where Willie would just do the song by himself. It wasn't until the Merle Haggard song, until he got it. But what I really, really love talking about with Gary this morning was you talk about going over to Europe a little bit. And he told me just a little tiny bit about you and Gracie throwing like a 20th and a 21st birthday party for Luke. And, and just like these fond memories of being in Ireland and how people would come together, and it was just such a thing. He was so amazed by Gracie would make a meal and you would bake a birthday cake, and you had this whole other facet to you. Do you have any stories from your time over there with those guys or anything like that?
Well, it was great to be over there with Gary. I mean, Gary Nicholson's my songwriting husband. And backing up just a little bit in terms of getting the cut for Gary, I showed the song "Love Me Like a Song" to Willie, and because we were going to record some stuff, and when you write songs, when you're a writer like Gary Nicholson, and you've been in Nashville and you've written songs for everybody, they're like cuts by people are like baseball cards or action figures or something. And the thing is Gary was missing his Willie Nelson from his collection.
No,
So
no. What do you mean? Oh, so that's what you
yeah,
mean.
so that was the
Like
one
I've
thing I
got.
could do was give him. He had his George Strait and his Ray Charles and his da 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 da, but he didn't have his Willie Nelson, so I was able to help him fill in his Willie Nelson action figure on his songwriting cut. So I did that, and that was great. And then Gary went on the road with us one time, and Luke came along.
Yeah.
And then we later all met up with Barbara and his son Travis in
Right.
Paris.
Right.
And it was just this crazy, wonderful time. Gosh, I miss it so much. I miss my fans in Ireland and England, and I miss my house in France, and
Yeah.
I miss Paris so much I can hardly stand it. It's my
There's
stomping ground.
there's so much beautiful stuff in the book about your and Gracie's time over there as well. Whether it's stuff about touring, with Kimmie Rhodes and her band, or whether it's stuff about the house and gut wrenching as well. I'll warn you that, but absolutely beautiful. So if we're talking a little bit about Europe, and we know we miss it, and we know we love getting across the pond, and you have such a great following over there. I know that right now there's another person, actually Susan Darrow, asked, "What was it like working on the Stand By Me recording with the BBC host Bob Harris that benefits musicians?" That's literal how she wrote it. I'm just reading it right there. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Who asked that question?
Susan Darrow from
Oh,
KPFT.
hey, Susan. Hi, I miss you so much. I'm tempted to drive to Houston and just sit in your backyard for 15 minutes and then drive back just to see your face. But well, Stand By Me is out tomorrow. There's a link on my Facebook page, and that's one of the many things that I've gotten to do lately. Everything all came to fruition at once. But
Let me show you some technology. Here we go. Wait for it. There it is. Okay, the Facebook page is right there. and KimmieRhodes.com, but the Facebook page is where we want to look for this.
Yeah, you'll see it on the Facebook page. It benefits help musicians. And Bob Harris' favorite song ever. And Bob Harris, a little bit of background on him. Bob Harris is a famous DJ, had a show called the Old Grey Whistle Test. A lot of people know that. And he had everybody on earth on the show. And so, you know, I don't even think I can name anybody
Right, yeah.
you know, from back then. But so Bob's had 50 years with the BBC. And Stand By Me is celebrating its 60th. The song with Benny King, Stand By Me.
Yep.
So they're doing a single to commemorate both, to raise money for help musicians. And just, you know, the list goes on and on. Peter Frampton and Mark Knopfler and Gabriel Rhodes and
Right
Cash and just a cast of thousands. And there's a video, Beth Nielsen Chapman, blah, blah, blah. But there's a video, but there's also the single. And I think the single's out tomorrow. So there's stuff on the Facebook page about that. You could be able to find that there. And it was wonderful. You know, it would have been a lot more fun if we could have all gotten in the same country in the same room and done it. But it's just such an honor to be part of it. And, you know, I can use all the good karma I can get. So hopefully that's going to help. You know, the thing about musicians, I'll go off on this for just a second.
Please.
I've been able to work with Chris Difford on a project I'd like to talk about, and Swan Songs with Christine Albert, Bobby Earl Smith, and Robert Earl King. And just all these things are coming down the tube that we get a chance to do and we have the time to do. But Judith Owen, we had this weekly meeting with the Song Club with Chris Difford. And Judith Owen really said, okay, so the code.
Is this Code Sunshine?
Yeah, I wrote a song called Code Sunshine.
Right.
It's called Song Club. And let's talk about that. But that album, we'd have a meeting once a week. And Judith Owen, that one benefits the frontline nurses in the UK. And it's a wonderful project with a lot of cast of thousands too.
It's the Royal College of Nursing Foundation.
Yes, and that's on the Facebook page too. And Gabe and Kevin Savagar, who works with, I've written loads of songs with him. He works with Rod Stewart. He lives out in LA. And Gabe and I wrote a song called Code Sunshine. And I'll tell the story about that in a minute. But
love it.
Judith Owen said, oh, so we were talking about how are we going to pitch this thing, and she said, oh, so it's the music community. It's a community in need helping another community in need. And I loved that idea because, you know, most of the people I know are doing all these wonderful things like you. You know, we can't play shows except live, and I really appreciate the people tuning in. But I thought, what a great thing to be able to do right now. You know, this is a horrible thing, this pandemic, but things happen for a reason. And I think we're all kind of finding our better angels in all of this. So
I think you nail it in that. It's like we hate that this is the way it's happened. But, you know, my wife said something a while back about the resilience of musicians, just kind of finding themselves and trying to find new ways to do things. And how much they are just kind of willing to go out on a limb to help other people. I don't know about you, but I just kind of feel like nothing could have happened without 50 other people helping me along the way. And you just feel this load of like, well, I gotta, I mean, I don't know about you also, like, things are cool. Like, things are nice. I like things. I like guitars. I like a nice pair of slippers, but things don't fill, you know, whatever kind of hole there is. It's usually just trying to help out other people that fills that hole.
Well, that's the thing about musicians that we've always laughed about is people say, hey, you want to play a benefit? And you say, sure, but then you realize you forgot to ask what it was even for. You can sometimes you're playing, you still don't know what it's for, but then also there's Marsha Ball. I want to mention while I've got this laundry list.
Let's do it, yeah.
People that are doing wonderful things right now, you know, Marsha Ball and Nancy Copland and all the people from Ham and Home.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Locally, I mean, I talk to Marcia about once a week, and we sometimes, as Gabe put it, we miss the dog days of COVID. We first started up, and we had all this time because we're all so busy now doing all these things, and
Right.
it's an honor and a privilege. And
Carolyn mentioned when I had Carolyn Wonderland on.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've gotten to be part of some really cool stuff that I don't know that I would have gotten to be part of had it not been for being asked to help. We're a community in need to help other communities in need.
Well, and I think that when we come out of this, let's all just hope that we take some of this with. You know, whether it's just the fact that we can live stream shows so that people across the pond can see us more frequently, or whether, because that's going to become a part of things. You know, people are going to be selling tickets to shows this way. But also just like the use of communication in a good way, and people helping out people in different places. I've been pretty active in the Austin community from a one-bedroom studio apartment in Vancouver Island. And you know, we couldn't do that without technology. People in the comments right now, I need to quick mention, thank you so much. I really appreciate John for putting the Kimmie Rhodes books thing there, and Susan for putting that YouTube up. I assume that was of the Song Club, maybe. Anyway, I love how you guys will help out and put stuff in the comments so that people can find some of the things that my guests are talking about.
Fun to watch. I'm having a fun time watching whatever.
I know sometimes I have a hard time. Like I can't say hello to everybody, but I'm so grateful everybody's here and asking. So I have a young singer-songwriter that you may not be familiar with, but I really, really like, and I've done a bit of co-writing with her, and she asked a couple of great questions. These two questions I gotta ask because I think they're really great. I don't know if you have an answer for this, but maybe this will lead into you playing a song for us if you don't mind. Because I know you have a guitar there and you're ready. So I love this question. I have no idea if you have an answer for this. What's your number one go-to trick when you're stuck on a co-write?
I usually just excuse myself and go to the restroom for a minute. You know,
like wanting your food to come.
Water and see if the water fairies. I don't tend to
That's good. That's good though.
I don't get stuck on co-writes like I used to. And it depends on who you're writing with and what for, and is there a deadline and all those things. But who asked this question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention Natalie Price.
Okay, Natalie. Well, when I get stuck on a co-write, if it's like with Gary or something, we don't even talk about being stuck. We don't even think about being stuck. We just don't want that elephant even in the room. We usually just go to a movie or something.
See, yeah, that's great. I also like that.
Why sometimes you just need a little bit of time for it to go around in your head. There's this thing, the way the brain works, it's called synapses.
Right.
And sometimes, like when you're learning guitar or learning an instrument or whatever, sometimes you're not stuck. And I don't really believe in writer's block. I've never had that. But sometimes you've been putting forth all these things and thinking and saying things and putting out all this stuff. And sometimes you just need to go take in some stuff a little bit. And that's why a lot of the writers, now I'm off into my songwriting one.
No, it's good.
I need to do one of these on songwriting.
I mean, we could go on for, I want you to go on. I have a thing that my wife taught me about that's called Shinrin Roku, which is if you're Japanese, a doctor might prescribe a forest bath. And it just means you're supposed to go walk in the forest. I can't tell you how many times.
You have to give you time to catch up. When I used to, when I was writing for a big publisher, Rondorf Music, and they'd take me out to LA and put me in a big fancy hotel room and be sending people like Kevin Savagar and people over to write with me. And you know, they were just throwing the kitchen sink at me, everything, money, what do you need, what can we do for you? And all I had to do was just deliver a couple of songs that week. And no pressure there.
Right, right.
So, you know, you've got Herb Alpert across the street, you know, and Jerry Moss and
whatever's
and
happening.
Al and waiting to see what you did. But But I found that sometimes I just had to not think. And I also learned to use my sleep
Mm.
way to place it in my mind, whatever, not as a problem, because it's not a problem.
No.
You're not going to fall off the earth if you don't write a lyric or something. But I would just place the puzzle pieces that were missing in my mind before I'd go to sleep. And a lot of times, just through the magical process of the brain, I would have more of it than I could have thought of while I was awake when I would just wake up the next day.
Stephen Sondheim talks a lot about that, believe it or not.
You got to get out of the way sometimes and just trust. I think trust is if I had to put it in one word, you're going to get it. If you're a writer, it's going to happen.
See, now that's it. And Natalie says, brilliant. One last quick question. One quick question from Natalie too before we start the next. Before I ask you to play a song, when was the last time you got goosebumps hearing a song?
I have to say, I don't remember. I really don't remember the last time I got goosebumps hearing the song.
Maybe we'll let that one marinate. Maybe something will come.
Yeah, maybe I'll go to sleep and wake up and I'll
and you'll be like, I remember
how do I find you, Natalie? I'll find you on Facebook and answer the question. But
you guys should know each other for sure.
It was probably a Tom Waits song.
Yeah. My favorite. I just heard one of my best Tom Waits stories when we talked about it last week. Elizabeth Gilbert was talking. The writer was talking about. She interviewed Tom Waits, and he was on the LA freeway, and he was driving, and he had an idea for a song, and they were talking about, you just can't know when it's going to come, and he had this great idea for a song, and he had no paper, he had no phone, he had no nothing, and he just looked up and he went, "Can't you see I'm driving?"
Yeah, that happens. That's what my song that I wrote, that I recorded with Joe Ely, that later became a title track for a Willie Nelson record, Just One Love. I was doing an interview recently. And sometimes you have to give these answers because they're the true answer, even whether people are going to think you're crazy or not, And I was actually so dug into just this wild writing, recording life at that point that even I questioned my sanity. But I was on my way to Joe Ely's house to show him the song I wanted to record at Sun Studios the next week. And I thought, I'll just write it on the way. Which is where trust comes in. Just that dumb, innocent, dumb luck,
Yeah, caution to the wind, right?
And fell on me. It's like the Tom Waits, okay, I'm ready. I was getting on the train and it was time to get my ticket, but I didn't have the ticket yet. And I was at the intersection. I was halfway there at the intersection of 620 and 71.
I know exactly where that is, yep.
And it fell on me. And I had the whole rest of, the almost 30 minutes to write it on the way there. And I got there. I hadn't even ever written it down.
Yeah. Getting out of the way is such a huge...
And I just showed it to Joe and he said, that's great. Let's do that. So, and then I've had songs like my most successful song, I Just Drove By. I rewrote that song for 7 years.
Isn't it funny? People will say, is it one thing? And it's like, no. Everyone...
All of the above.
Yeah. People like yourself, and not just to kiss butt or whatever, like that I look up to, they often say to me, people like yourself and Gary and other writers that I aspire to hang out with and sponge off of, they're always like, there's no one way. There's no it's like this one took 7 years and this one just fell right out. And they're both mean the world to me.
Yeah. Sometimes, it was Fred Rose, I think, who either said or was quoted saying, great songs aren't written, they're rewritten.
I like that.
And so there is a lot of value in taking another look at them if you have time. And it's great to have publishers. I learned a lot working with David Conrad, who was just a wonderful song man and publisher that took me under his wing and kind of helped me take my place among a lot of other writers. And
I wish I had that, but it never happened.
Me, he would say, what does that mean? And sometimes I'd say, it doesn't matter what it means. Isn't it great? And sometimes I'd go, you know what? I knew what that meant, but it's not on the page. So even working with him, I'd either say you're right, or I'd say I just want to eat my sandwich. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm sticking to my guns on this one.
Yeah,
Take it or leave it.
so it was, but it was also nice to have, and that's been another good thing about co-writing with people like Gary Nicholson and Beth Nielsen Chapman is they will just outright call you on it.
Exactly.
And then you got to say, yeah, you're right, or you got to say,
you got to give him a reason, or
here, leave me alone.
It's funny. I was writing with your son Gabriel once, and it's one of my favorite things that ever happened. And we were writing this song, and he said, "What is this? What is this? Picking up nickels in a hurricane?" He said, "What's that?" And he's like, "Why don't you say picking up cans?" And I was like, "I don't know. It just sounds like something Tom Waits would say." And he goes, "Oh, okay. Well, then we'll keep it."
Well,
It's like that's all I had to say was, "Oh, it sounds like something Tom Waits would say," and he was like, "Okay, well then it fits."
Yeah, right.
And sometimes it doesn't.
There's that. I'm sorry, I just talked over.
No,
you.
please. It's part of this thing.
Yeah, the Townes Van Zandt school. Because to me, Townes Van Zandt is like the Shakespeare of our.
The Rumi, the what, whatever. It's
and Townes, who would have just laughed and told jokes and just thought this was bullshit,
Yep, totally.
But what I loved about him and Tom Waits is they just trust you to get it, and if you're supposed to, you do. And I think that sometimes some of the best songs are ones that are open enough. Like I think that was the secret to West Texas Heaven.
Right. Which we were listening to everybody with the intro.
I can't tell you how many times, it surprises me that that's been one of my most successful songs. And I think in time I've come to realize it's because it's open enough that
to
people
interpretation
can engage with their own interpretation, whereas instead of coloring it all in, I've gotten so many emails, and before email, even fan mails of people telling me what that song meant
to them. Yeah,
and assuming that it meant that to me too, and it meant something totally obscurely different to me.
That's something that I think that we do talk about sometimes. Do I want this to be, or do we want this to be something where the person listening feels like they are the person?
Mm-hmm. Well,
or does it matter? Or sometimes you write it and you just put it out there, and who knows? Like Patty Griffin says, you put a song out there and you don't know what people are going to do with it. It's not really yours anymore once it's out. And I also love that. Now with the song, because I really want to get to you picking a song, because you were nice enough to grab your guitar. Not everybody
running out of time.
No, not at all. Not at all. And we can stay on a little bit afterwards. I usually do for the people that are online. But with the song that you told me you were planning on playing, which I hope you're still planning on playing, it's the Love and Happiness song, right?
Yeah.
Is this just because people don't usually get a unique insight? Uh-oh.
I just hung up on whoever that was.
It's okay. Like I said, I love this show for just those reasons. My dogs usually go crazy at least once.
Well, I'd like to back up. Let's see. What was my thought was? Well, I've lost it.
No, that's okay. But I was going to ask if it was. I was going to ask if Love and Happiness was a song that was arduous, or was a song that was fell down from the sky like a thunderbolt.
Okay, well, back to your point, I remember now. It's at the end of the day, it's what the song wants. I've really come to quit that you can think too much, and especially when you're a writer, you can think too much and not just be letting it come through. And so, really, in the end, sometimes it needs to be really clear, and sometimes it's just what does the song want, And Love and Happiness for you, I was snowed in to a house sale in Nashville. I had just bought a guitar, a little real kind of rare Gibson student model guitar, and Gary Nicholson had put it in an open tuning and then just set it back in my guitar case. And so I've got it out, and it was like bang, it was like this wreck. And then I realized it was in this tuning. I didn't even know what tuning it was in. And I just started messing around. I had like 2 days, and when the snow cleared, I was supposed to drive over to Emmy Lou's house to write a song. So finally, it cleared up enough for me to go over to her beautiful house there in Nashville. She had a fireplace in her writing room, and it's still freezing outside, especially for an Austinite.
Yeah, right.
And she built a fire in the fireplace, and as she put it, we just finished each other's sentences. And I just started with this little piece. It was going to be my son Jeremy's birthday.
Yeah.
And it was just magic just kept happening. It was going to be his birthday, and I needed a birthday present. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll write a song. And I started this little idea, and I said, well, I have this idea for this song I thought I'd write for Jeremy for his birthday. And she said, okay, well, let's do that. And we wrote it. And then a week later, it turned out she was playing Austin City Limits. And she invited me to come on Austin City Limits and got Jeremy tickets. So we debuted the song on Jeremy's birthday on Austin City Limits. So it just, there's just always magic. And if you just stay out of the way and appreciate it, that's really all you have to do. You don't have to do a lot.
Well, would you be kind enough to play it for us? We'd love to hear it.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to make this screen just Kimmie, everybody. Kimmie Rhodes.
Here's a wishing, here's a penny for any thought is that makes you smile. Every diamond dream, anything that brings love and happiness to your life. Here's a rabbit's foot, take it when you go, so you'll always know you're safe from harm. And wear your ruby shoes when you're far away, so you'll always stay home in your heart. You will always have a lucky star, shines because of what you are, even in the deepest dark, because your aim is true. Oh, if I could only have one wish, then it would be this: love and happiness for you. Here's a spinning wheel, use it once you've learned. There's a way to turn straw to gold. Here's a rosary, count on every beat, with a prayer to keep the hope you hold. You will always have a lucky star. Shines because of what you are. Even in the deepest dark. Because your aim is true. Oh, if I could only have one wish, then it would be this. Love and happiness for you. Oh, if I could only have one wish, then it would be this. Love and happiness for you.
I just wanted it to keep going on and on and on and on and on. I did not want it to stop. We have, I'm sure, a lot of like virtual tears and virtual applause going on in the chat. Let's see. Oh, so Natalie said, "Oh my gosh, what an incredible story! Thanks." And Adrian over on Twitch said that was a great story. Randy asked what tuning that song was in.
Open E.
That's what I thought. I was gonna say E or D, but it's
Yeah, it's just if you played an E on a guitar, it's open to what you need. So you barely even need fingers to be able to play. and I find that different tunings and different instruments even that I don't know how to play are good for me because it keeps me from doing the same thing over and over again.
It's a common thing that we come back to. Yeah, it's a common thing that we come back to on this show, especially with the songwriters, because we get all types on here, but they often say picking up another instrument or trying a different tuning or moving something around tends to kind of make you think, because I know if I sit down at the piano, I'm going to write something completely. When my friend Natalie and I were writing a song recently, I was like just sitting at the piano and I played a couple chords. I was like, let's just write from here.
Yeah.
You know? And of course, something different would come out than if I was strumming a guitar or playing slide.
Yeah.
But
exactly. My song, I'm Not an Angel. I mean, I won't tell the story because it's too long, but I think it's in the book.
No, do it. Do it. We got time. Go ahead.
Well, I Nana Judd had recorded a song. I just drove by. I paid off all my bills. I had just enough money. Well, I bought a vacuum cleaner. And then when more money started.
That's in the book, too. That's in the book. Right. Yeah.
But then as more money started to come along, I had enough money to buy a piano, and I'd always wanted to learn to play the piano. And every time
I love your piano.
Well, as a kid, she sent me home and told my mother I had no musical ability. And Waylon told me he got kicked out of the choir for not having any musical ability one time.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
I got kicked out of my piano lessons too.
Yeah, so anyway, I went into the music store in South Austin and went, "Where's Middle C?" And they went, "Right here." And I went, "Ding, ding, ding, I'll take it." And I took one lesson from Floyd Domino. He's taught me to play inversions, but I can't learn to play the piano because every time I touch one, instead of practicing, I start writing songs. But I played this inversion wrong and went, "Oh, that sounded cool." I ended up writing a song called "I'm Not an Angel."
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, I did a demo. It ends up in a movie. And the next thing I know, John Leventhal's calling me because they were going to record it in New York at the big studio there, for Sony Music. And, I mean, I just dumb lucked my way into most of everything that's ever happened to me. But I said, "Who's the piano player?" And I went, "Oh, me." And he went, "Oh, well, you're going to be the piano player." I still don't know how to play the piano at all. But I had done the demo on it because I was the one that made the mistake. And every time I'd play it, I'd have to show the piano player that knew what they were doing how to make the mistake because it was so wacky. So I'm in this session and he goes, "Oh, okay." we'll just get another piano player. I'm like, yeah, please, I'll just bog it down.
Oh yeah. Please let me bow out, right?
So he did, and he got this guy that just played great. And then after all the band, he sent him away, and he said, "Okay, now go in there and play the piano." And he stood behind me like this, like a.
But he wanted what you did.
And then when I'd start, I mean, it was like a kid, trying to figure it out. And when I'd start to learn it, he'd go, no, you're playing too well now. You're thinking too much. Just play what you did, and I did that. So it was great. So I wrote a song. I got it in a movie. I got to do a session in New York with John Leventhal. I got credit for playing the piano on my album, which I still didn't know how to play the piano. And I still don't know how to play the piano, but I write on it all the time. But I'll never learn. I'll never go to practice.
I find it beautiful. I mean, like, who cares what road it takes you down? You were open to that. You were open to the road of, this is something that I use as a tool to write, and it takes me down a different road. There's a interesting one person that I used to play with a lot that shall remain nameless, doesn't really understand guitar chords or anything, and he learned much later. This guy, he learned way later how to play guitar, and mostly he would just set his fingers down until he would find something that fit, and so he would come up with stuff that guitar players would never come up with.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
And sometimes it's like, well, yeah, and we don't realize that a lot of our heroes and a lot of people just put their fingers down until it worked.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And the thing about piano that really works, Natalie, is, unless you play piano, is that you're playing patterns.
Yeah.
So I just play patterns. I don't have any idea what key I'm in.
It doesn't matter. You just look at the sounds.
Then let somebody else in a session can tell me what key it was in, because you're going to change it anyway, probably. But
yeah, and we don't need
to matter what key it's in.
I never find that people who know a lot of theory or people who don't know a lot of theory, it's not a problem for me. If you know a lot of theory, great. You got a lot of vocabulary. You can talk to people about it. If you don't know a lot of theory, great. You come up with stuff that the people wouldn't.
I probably know more theory than I do guitar chords.
Right?
Honestly, I mean, and people like you that can just play, Gabe, and everything. I really admire that, but it's just not my superpower, and it never will be, because I can't stick with it. If I hear something, I just go.
You get the writer bug.
Thing, I just go following that off, and I write a song instead, because my heart's in writing songs more than it is in learning to play an instrument.
Well, and I
player. I can play rhythm.
Oh, it's funny that you say that, but I mean, I was talking to Ray Prim the other day on this show. I don't play guitar. And then he played guitar, and it sounded beautiful. It's just he was self-accompanying in a really, really, really great way, and his ear was there. You picked up something in a brand new tuning and said, that's what's going to come out. I don't know. For those of us, a lot of us are in awe of that kind of stuff, that kind of thing. We love it. If sometimes everybody puts stuff in, I'm not an angel. What was it called again?
I'm not an angel.
I'm not an angel. A lot of times people will put that in the comments as well, so you can hear the song that Kimmie was just talking about. Also, I definitely want to mention before we go off, and we've gotten to most of the questions, but we'll get a couple of them. If we have to, we'll stay online just to grab a couple of them after we go off on cable. Your monthly newsletter is Sunbird Songs.
Sunbird Sings.
Sunbird Sings. Thank you.
Yeah, in the world of Patreon, where you do Patreon and a lot of people, but I have this website that just goes on and on. It's like a shopping mall. You can get all the songs, everything you can get anywhere that I've done. It's all things Kimmie Rhodes. And Sunbird Sings is like my own personal, it's like Patreon, but you get a download of a song every month. It's a place where things that I write. Like, for example, this, and it's a subscription, because I figure it's, it's the price of a cup of coffee.
Absolutely.
And you can get on or off. You can do for a year, and other people send me donations and stuff, whatever. But this month, it's getting ready to come out the day before Halloween. Every October, I turn into this other person like
Oh,
Plankenstein.
I know. You've been part of the Plankenstein thing
When I
before.
write this story, usually they're food based. They have food and recipes connected to them and things, but this is a story based on the legend of the Lalaurie Mansion in New Orleans. But I've created this whole world where the cook's chained to the stove and sets the house on fire doing voodoo and all this stuff. So that's going to be out. But then I also have done like sometimes I do little movies that I
Yeah.
make, or I did serious stuff like I did the Role of Art in pandemics when this whole COVID thing started up, or the Role of Art in bridging political divides. Or
Really good.
I just do whatever I'm in the mood to do. And my fans usually want to go there with me. There's always recipes, there's always music.
Well, these things they can find.
Which is good.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. It's part of the format. I always interrupt my guests, so I apologize in advance again. We put a link to that right there. Thank you, Susan, for putting that specific link up to Sunbird Sings. But we also have these right here as well. And there's a lot of stuff that you have coming out as we're getting close. The Sound of Cabbage Alley means we're getting close to being off on television. So once again, thank you to Austin Music TV and to Sheila Steele for giving us a platform for this. We really appreciate it. And we're just going to, like, as it goes off, we just don't even care. You want to say something before?
I want to say one more thing. First of all, thank you to you, and thank you to Austin Music TV and everybody that's helped do this. But I also want to mention that Gabe and I did a video with Sam Rich, who's just this genius videographer. And it's really cool. It's Code Sunshine, and I'll have it up.
I think that was what they put that in here, but we'll make sure it's in the
album's out. But I haven't put the video up yet. So sometime in the next couple of days on my Facebook page, I'm going to put this really fun video that we worked really hard on. And I wanted to give Sam a shout out and everything. So check out this video because it's one of the most fun things that we have done during this whole lockdown.
And we'll make sure that once we get off the air in about 2.5 minutes, we'll just let it fade out. So thank you, everybody there. Thank you, Kimmie Rhodes. But when that happens, we'll make sure that we have everything listed so people can get a hold of it as well. I only ask one question every week. That is my question to everyone. And my question to everyone is, what is your guilty pleasure music, or what is the music that people wouldn't necessarily know? This is something you really dig, you know? For everybody's always kind of got something that's like, it's not necessarily a guilty pleasure. Some people are like, oh, you never really knew that, you know, whatever. But do you have a guilty pleasure music or something that you listen to that people wouldn't necessarily expect?
Well, I don't know if they'd expect it or not, but I listen to Charlie Christian.
Charlie Christian, the guitar player, yes.
And I'm a Charlie Christian freak. Ever since Joe Gracie stole Susan Darrow's Charlie Christian CD.
The genius of the electric guitar.
I love Charlie Christian, but also I love to listen to music that doesn't have lyrics.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for me to rest my brain. I love lyrics, but when I don't want to think about it, I love to listen to music that doesn't have lyrics. And there's a whole world of music that doesn't have lyrics out there. And
Johnny Graham said the same thing last week. He said the same thing. He really prefers. Also, Alice.
Also, I've been listening. Oh, hey, Doggy. I've been listening to Louie practice the piano. I actually tip him $20 and sit outside on the deck by our little goofy swimming pool that we have out there. And Louie does gigs for me, and I think $20. And that music doesn't have lyrics, and it's so much fun to listen.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
See, I really, really do love that. I find too, like a friend of mine is teaching a famous songwriter person that we know how to play better guitar. And he said that basically what ends up happening is he'll show this person a guitar chord, and then all of a sudden they'll go, okay, I got to go write a song. Or he'll just play a lick and they'll go, and they'll get the bug like you do, you know. Anyway, we're almost at the time where we go off. Let me make sure. Thanks again to everybody. Thanks to Kimmie Rhodes. Kimmie, stay on with me because we're going to stay online and answer the last few questions. Oh, we're already off.
Okay.
That shows you.
she's saying Happy CD has a good home. If you'll look, I made Joe Gracie bring it back to you and put it back in your library.
Oh, so Susan, you've already got it back. You already got it back, so you can't worry about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just going to say this. Since we are off the television show now, we can do as many call to actions as we want. We can make sure that everybody has. Oh, look at that. Susan just put Amazon.com code sunshine. We didn't really talk anything about your cookbook. I do want to ask real quick, because I know that a couple people, different people were asking. They say, oh, Thanksgiving's coming up. What's your favorite recipe from the cookbook? Is it enchiladas? Is it this? I mean, asking your favorite recipe is a tough one. But if you have something off the top of your head that would be like, well, what would be a good thing to think of right now, cookbook-wise?
Where is my cookbook here? I'm trying to really have a
Take the time if you want to grab it or anything.
Second. Yeah, here
That's no problem. We're very we're low tech.
It went out of print. You can get it on the website. It went out of print, and it's just recently come back into print again. And
all right.
The new edition of The Amazing Afterlife of Herman Fees. And this was just a cookbook that Joe Gracie and I did for family and friends for Christmas one year. And like so many others we stumbled into, it led to a food writing career for him.
I know. Yeah, it's so cool.
And his enchilada recipe won the Savoir magazine. Hang on, I got to tell my computer to stop doing something. It won the Savoir magazine contest for best enchiladas, and that they were testing in their kitchen nationwide. And Coleman Andrews got a hold of it because he was a music fan of mine, and one thing led another, and they tested the recipe and it won. So
wow.
Next thing we know, our little cookbooks in Savoir magazine, and so those enchiladas are famous.
Yeah.
And they're really, really good. And then, so that's everybody else's favorite recipe. And my favorite recipe is called Babette's eggplant.
Ooh, I'm just going to put that right here. Babette.
Eggplant. And you can get it now. It's not out of print anymore. It's not digital yet. We're still working on that. But you can get it on the website. And
okay.
Probably buy it out, the first edition out there on eBay somewhere. But
right.
Anyway.
Well, I love that. Okay, let me see if we got to everything. I know Ron asked who was / is your favorite Rob McDonald. Read your book, amazing.
Oh,
who is your favorite singer to duet with, and why?
Well, I guess I have to say Willie.
I mean, what are you going to say, right?
Why? Not because he's a total superstar, the only real superstar I've ever known. I've known a lot of stars, but he's the only real superstar. But because Willie is just a soulmate, when we're singing songs, we knew all that. Our first connection musically is we knew all the same gospel songs. We grew up singing the same, so we have the same sense of harmony. And I know what he's going to do, and he knows what I'm going to do, and he. At that point, I forget that he's a hero, and he forgets that he's my hero, and he treats me like an equal.
Yeah.
We're just friends, and we just sing songs together, and it is so much fun. And of course, it's always helpful to have done duet albums with the superstar, but that takes a back seat to just the joy of.
Yeah, it kind of goes out of the window, and you start remembering that you're around a person. It's just for the rest of us, fledglings. We're just kind of like, But that's
I am too.
That's what happens when I'm talking to Gary any 5 minutes with Gary Nicholson on the phone. Oh yeah. Oh. Well, Ringo, it just happens every 5 minutes with the guy because it's who he hobnobs with, writing-wise. Yeah. And you're definitely.
Well, we're not name dropping. They are.
No.
That's the thing is.
No, I'm the name dropper.
Oh God, I sound like I'm name dropping. Marsha Ball always says there's a thing where when you name drop, you're supposed to drop a piece of silverware. And it's like, I'll say, okay, get ready because you're going to have to drop the whole box of silverware on this one because dig this, And it's just. I didn't call Waylon Jennings. Waylon Jennings called me.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah, and that's what happens.
Emmylou Harris called me, and they want to be friends, and they're
Yeah.
friends, and it's the joy of the life that, it's part of what you get for all that other stuff you had to do, and
Yeah, when I'm doing a resentment show, which you've been kind enough to sit in at resentment shows every once in a while, and every time they think I'm name dropping, John Chipman hits the bell of the ride cymbal and he goes ding, and so I'll be like, and then my friend Michael O'Connor said, "Hey man, don't worry about it. You just got cool friends."
yeah, I was raised by Cowboy Clement.
Yeah.
Jack Clement.
Jack Clement.
Cowboy Clement, and he enjoyed name dropping,
It's like, whatever, yeah.
Oh, Johnny Cash will be here in a little while,
Yeah.
He just kind of taught me, just be who you are.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. And
sure.
And so it's really fun, but he actually really quite enjoyed it. Oh yeah, Crystal Gal called and and
yeah.
So
we know the people who do it differently too. We know the people who are like, I'm sorry, I've got to take this. It's Eddie, like this is Eddie Van Halen or whatever, late Eddie Van Halen. Like I had a guy who used to do it like that, and it was a different thing, Couple of other things. My good friend Kate Howard says, this is a good question. She said, what have you learned from your son Gabriel about production, performance, or songwriting? I would imagine learning from one's child is equal parts humbling and exhilarating. Please expound on the experience. Like just for a moment, about your work with Gabe.
Well, Gabriel Rhodes is the master of be on time, know your lines, and don't bump into the furniture. That was a Spencer Tracy thing, but Gabe, he's never late. No matter how screwed up he may be, whatever, he's never late because it matters.
Yeah.
And he's never let me down.
So respect for the
respect
gig.
for the other people, and he's just got such a wonderful sense of social grace when it comes to other musicians, including me. When he did an interview one time, Kate, he said, they asked him what was it like playing with his mom, and he said, well, we're on the road, she's not my mom.
That's exactly what he's told me.
Yeah.
He literally told me that. He said that you kind of have to separate a little bit, and you just become, it's like, no, like I'm playing for her, and this is a gig, and I take it seriously. And
nobody wants to be. Can you imagine being in your mom's band? Think about your mom, and then think about being in her band.
It would be weird.
So, but Gabe always knows the songs. Gabe has never gone on stage and not known every song, no matter how much he had to cram to do it, no matter how much trouble was in his life. And I think Gabe, I don't necessarily credit myself as much as I credit that he did get to grow up around Willie and Cowboy and other people. Jimmy Day.
Oh, I know. He speaks about Jimmy Day. He speaks about Jimmy Day being a big influence on him.
Gabe had a lot of mentors besides me. But he learned, the Texas Playboys always had a thing. You could just pick up things here and there, and Gabe picked up a lot of them and kept them in his toolbox. And people who ever played with Bob Wills, they had a rule: leave your troubles off the stage. Don't bring your troubles on stage. When you're on the stage with Bob, you smile, and because the audience is there to have a good time. I mean, they took a bath, parked their car, paid for a ticket. I mean, when you
gotta have respect for that, right?
Yeah, there were places in Ireland where I found out that people, and way up in Scotland and stuff, when we were playing back in the 80s, people were actually making layaway payments on a ticket to come to your show.
Yeah, you better.
And they don't care what your problems are. They're there to forget their problems. If you've got a problem, write it in a song and sing it, and maybe they'll relate to it. But never take your problems to the stage. Always be there for the other musicians. And another thing we all learned from Jimmy Day, which Gabe is brilliant at, is music is something to do with your ears. You play music with your ears, and so you listen to the other musicians. And I could always tell that Jimmy was listening to me because I would sing a lick, and then he would he would play that lick. I just off the top of my head, not a normal lick. He would be listening and he would incorporate it into his next thing that when he'd pick it up from me.
Be call and response.
Yeah, it just just
listening.
I mean, there's nothing worse than a drummer that's just back there not listening.
Just playing
it's
mechanically.
The most important thing in the world as a drummer has to be listening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we also, I remember being in the studio the first time a drummer asked for a lyric sheet and thinking, well, he's like, well, I want to know what we're talking about here.
John Gardner, sorry anybody else, but John Gardner's just my guy, I just love that guy. And he asked for a lyric sheet. Jimmy Day played from a lyric sheet. Jimmy Day never made a chart, and he didn't use a tuner.
You know what's great about lyric sheets? For musicians out there who often ask about siding and being a performer and listening to great songs, if you know the lyrics, you will not mess up the form. Because you know what's coming next. If you know the lyrics, then you already have really, really, really good ideas for what is going to happen in a solo section. You don't have to play a bunch of licks.
But that said, thank God for the number chart.
Well, that's true. Once you learn Nashville numbers, it's great,
Another one of those things, it happens like it happens, and different people like different ways of doing it. But I love a drummer that asks for a lyric sheet.
Yeah, me too. Well, this has been absolutely spectacular. Is there anything else that we didn't get mentioned, or that we can ask someone like Susan to put into the? I think we've hit on a bunch of stuff. I know you have a lot of stuff. I could just tell everybody, check out Facebook. Like tomorrow, there's going to be a bunch of stuff, and throughout the week.
Well, there's stuff right now, and maybe tomorrow or the next day. I've got to talk to Chris Stivert and find out, because they're going to put the video of Code Sunshine up on there. We're kind of having to queue up. So they're going to have Code Sunshine, the video, up on YouTube. If it's not there now, Susan, did you say it's up there now?
Yeah, it might be. We'll see.
But if it is, then I'm trying to kind of link to them, so then I'll blast that out on social media.
All right.
But I want everybody to see the video, because Gabe and I have our masks on, and we playing Spy versus Spy, and we did a lot of green screen stuff. It's really fun. I just want everybody to see it, because it's so much fun.
Is it Halloween worthy? I could play it during my Plankenstein, or is it not really Halloween?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, send it to me, and I'll make sure that it goes up during the Plankenstein thing so we can. I am doing a couple of video premieres that just happen to go well during that show, and that's for everybody. It's a bipartisan thing. It's for voting, and it's election protection, but it's also for 1-to-1 because the club closed down, so we're doing it in honor for them. And but you guys can all look up that stuff later. Susan says not quite yet. A whole lot of people saying thank you, John, thank you, Kate, thank you everybody else who's out there right now. Kimmie, stay on with me if you don't mind.
This was so much fun. Thank you, everybody. Gosh, I could just go on and on. I feel if I was lonely, I'm not now. I feel like I had a real visit with people.
Yeah, and honestly, we're really grateful for it. Stay on with me right now, Kimmie, and I'm going to say goodbye to everybody online. And I can't thank you enough, everybody. Share this with your friends. I keep these archived, so you can go back and watch it anytime. And everybody take care of each other and those first responders and all that. Sunbird sings, everybody.
Oh, $5. Spend $5 and see if you like it.
It's as simple as that. All right. Well, we're going to take off. Thank you all so much. Kimmie Rhodes, everybody.
Thank you.